This is a critique which falls under fair use, and there are obviously spoilers in this critique. Please reserve any judgment you have until after watching this video. Okay, before we begin, I'd like to say overall, I like Star versus the Forces of Evil, but I can acknowledge it's a flawed show. One of the most glaring of these flaws was the season 1 finale, Storm the Castle. To my knowledge, Star vs. the Forces of Evil is a very divisive show. Some people will hate me for criticizing the show, and others will hate me for liking the show anyway. One episode is not enough to ruin the show for me, no matter how bad or important it is. I'm only up to mid-season 3 so far, but this episode was so bad I had to go back and rewatch it so I could make a critique and put it on YouTube. This episode was contrived and poorly edited. It was a weak point at what should have been a strong point. The episode starts with Star risking her life for a sandwich, which is fine because it's established she's an idiot. In the process of Star trying to take the sandwich, she awakens and angers a weird creature. She and Marco try to run from it, but conveniently they encounter a cliff. When they jump down the cliff, Star being Star decides the best spell to use to survive the fall is summoning a giant cheesecake, which they use as a trampoline. Needless to say, that's not how cheesecakes work. Star and Marco get into an argument because as Marco is actually decently intelligent and he is angry at Star for risking her life for a sandwich. This whole sequence only happened so Star could try to share the sandwich with Marco and discover he's missing. When Star checked Marco's room for the second time when looking for him, she found the fly monster in Marco's hoodie, who threatened Star she would never see Marco again, alive again unless she brings her on to Ludo's castle and comes alone. This one is incredibly tired and cliche. Then they alleviated all tension by having Marco's father get punched in the face by the phone. Star describes what happened to the police, and she uses an Irish accent and immediately notices, despite the fact she's never heard an Irish man or Irish woman or Irish child, and is at least almost completely unfamiliar with any Earth culture. Obviously, the police officer dismissed her claims. At least that makes sense. Oh, and if you still don't believe Star is at least almost completely unfamiliar with any Earth culture, here's a reminder. Just 3 episodes prior, she attacked the staff of a pirate-themed restaurant because she thought they were actually pirates. Then Ludo carries a struggling bag to Buffrog. Buffrog gets angry at when Ludo calls him Buffrog because it's not his real name, even though he never cared about being called Buffrog before or after this episode. When Star opens the bag, assuming Marco's in it, it's revealed that what's in it is monster tadpoles. Where did Ludo even get these tadpoles? They are monster babies, and monsters are sentient beings, so he would most likely be kidnapping other monsters' babies. And Ludo gives these tadpoles to Buffrog, even though it's clear at this point that Buffrog cannot afford to raise a family. I mean, his house is literally just a door and a log. Then there's a scene that shows Marco trapped in a cage by Toffee. Despite it being established that Toffee is intelligent, and Marco, he lets Marco out of his cuffs because he claims he will cook. And Marco tries to punch Toffee in the face, but despite Toffee standing right in front of him where he was punching, Marco hit the cage. Keys being left in the castle door, which are labeled Ludo keys. Keys are the only reason that Star was able to get in the castle. But I'll forgive that since I assume Toffee stole the key. ease, or I would if the show didn't make it seem like Ludo forgot his keys in the castle door. Ludo was kicked out of the castle, so he wouldn't have had his keys in the castle door. Bufflog puts all his tadpoles in the fountain where they clearly won't fit, but in the show they fit just fine. Then it revealed the crystal the cage Marco is made of is almost impervious to magic. And even when it's damaged by magic, it quickly regrows and becomes even more resilient against magic. This type of crystal will never be sewn again and will never be expanded upon, explaining why or how it's almost impervious to magic. Who, who forced Star to give her up her wand. Toffee presses a button that will cause the cage to lower its ceiling. Toffee somehow knows the whispering spell, the spell to destroy the wand, is the first spell Moon taught Star, and that it's called the whispering spell. Toffee forces Star to cast it. When Toffee was trying to force her to cast it, Star lied and said she didn't know how to destroy the wand, which is something she is probably not smart enough to fake to do. This is the girl who risked her life for a sandwich after all. She then cast a spell, killing the warning cord that powered her wand. Star then hid in the cage because when the whispering spell is cast, it will cause the wand to explode. Oh, and earlier, a bird monster ate Ludo. And then pooped him out as an egg, which is not how a bird's digestive system works. And somehow being in that egg allowed him to survive that explosion, despite it taking that crystal that is almost impervious to magic to protect Star and Marco from the explosion. Buffon couldn't have possibly escaped the explosion, but we continue to see him and his babies in the following seasons. The core of the wand somehow survived the explosion. And those who could cover the previous issues I've noted nitpicks. One, I felt they were important to bring up because even the smallest nitpicks add up if there are enough of them. It's really death by a thousand cuts, or rather pecks. And two, this next part is so poorly written and contrived it cannot be called a nitpick. It's that another tiny horse showed up and decided it was his duty to power Star's wand. And he goes into the core of Star's wand, which causes Star's wand to be magically repaired, but split in two. And the other half of the wand didn't need a horse to power it, just so Ludo could use it in season 2. Having something that's been destroyed immediately repaired lowers the stakes because stakes are built on consequences, and this establishes the writers are willing to immediately repair anything that's been destroyed. This is the whole reason I decided to tear this episode apart. It was just so bad. My friend, when I told him about this, suggested it would be a better idea to have a multi-episode arc where Star rebuilds the wand. Alternatively, they could have Star only use magic from herself because that's something they established she can do in season 2. Then Marco's parents show up, despite the fact that they had no dimensional scissors and her would the only way to access what was once Ludo's castle. The only explanation being they used Star's mirror, which if it can use it to travel through dimensions. Why did Star's parents allow her to have that? At that they didn't let her have dimensional scissors because they didn't want her uh, to be able to travel back to Muni. And for some reason, during full Muni night armor, the episode goes on for a few minutes more, but I really couldn't find any nitpicks, contrivances, or plot holes in the rest of the episode.